In the video I made about Halo finally coming to PS5, I mentioned that Sony has won the old game, and Microsoft just lost it. I'd like to take some time to explain that, if you would allow me. Take off any console fanboy jerseys you might have on, and free yourself of any preconceived notions that may have been based off nothing or your own subjective experiences. Sony won without fundamentally changing what PlayStation was. And I mean they won the old game, in that we're selling traditional home consoles that play some exclusive games, and that's about it. It's not super important that they won, and that will become obvious soon enough, but recognize that it's a dying market, and winning is as easy as not making a bunch of enormous mistakes in rapid succession. This video is not about PlayStation, nor is it about Xbox's past. It's about the Xbox's possible future. I am going to move forward assuming that the Xbox has exited the traditional console race, and I'm going to provide a number of possibilities with regards to how this could or should play out, if even there is a new Xbox hardware after all. The New Deal. This is not a new concept, but did you notice that consoles have become more and more like PCs over time? Realizing the way things are going, and taking appropriate action now is a winning tactic. You need to be proactive about leading indicators, and not reactive about trailing indicators. Xbox's biggest problem was its management's inability to wrangle a single good game out of its roster of developers for over 10 years straight. It's obvious that Microsoft wants the Xbox ecosystem to go cross-console and exist everywhere inside of something that experts call the cloud. Let's roll with that idea and invent a new Xbox that actually is a PC. Let's assume that they won't get steamrolled by, Valve making a competitive Steam console that somehow breaks out of the mysterious walled garden of Valve hardware and actually lands in people's houses. This new piece of hardware is a one-stop shop for every dumb online game that you or your kids want to play, because it actually runs Windows 11 or some new, even more disastrous version of Windows exclusive to that hardware. A console-style interface will therefore be included in Windows itself moving forward. This is going to be a weird one, but it's kind of expensive. It is sporting the best possible graphics and performance, and has some kind of hardware upgrade option perhaps. Figure it out, Microsoft engineers. Being at the bottom is the best time to take risks, especially if you have a lot of money kicking around. Sell this to PC gamers. Offset the initial investment by telling people that it's going to work forever. It won't, but let's pretend. Hey, this thing runs Windows, so it runs Steam. I can play anything, and I can use whatever controller I want. Let's imagine that Microsoft sells this, like Apple sells an iPad. This one's newer. It has the new chipset. We'll call this system the X1 or something. In a few years, the new one will have the X2 chip, and so on and so forth. You see, it's like a PC without having to read a bunch of yucky numbers. Have a console, but you're interested in playing a pre-built PC that conforms to a preset standard? We have some new hardware for you. There are no peripherals that do not work with the new Xbox, and we somehow still have a disk drive. Now is not the time to make gamers into the enemy again. Don't worry, eventually your diabolical plot to eliminate physical games will come true. Just not today, Satan. You can sell Microsoft-branded games at the store, but recognize that this is going away, and players will eventually realize that they're just playing Steam games on their new Xbox anyway. Thanks, Steam, for being the tip of the spear and going all digital. Game Pass is a nightmare. It should have clearly worked, but I'm not sure it did. This must absolutely be the best deal in gaming, and the perception, right now, is that it's not. Many have said that it's a bad deal for developers, and maybe the only way it can be profitable for them is to be owned and paid upfront by Microsoft. Can you break the million-year-old curse of being owned by Microsoft, and then not being able to actually develop anything? It may seem strange, but saving Game Pass might involve firing almost everyone who is directly above producer or team lead inside every developer that they own. If Game Pass has a string of fantastic new exclusives showing up day one, multiple times a year, I don't think people will be complaining as much. Either fix those problems, or take the hit and make it cheaper somehow. Finally, the name Xbox might just be radioactive now. You can't fail 2 generations in a row without getting a ton of baggage. You can make a clean break with a brand new name. Think about a name that could sell people on a new kind of PC, as opposed to a new kind of console. Pretend that the traditional desktop PC is old and busted, and this new device is the new hotness. I'm imagining images of Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite, and gacha games painted directly on the box, as it sits on the store shelves. Hopefully not forever. Are we solving a non-existent problem? Do people want the PC for their television? Do people want a console that has no boundaries with regards to what it can play? The only thing we know for sure is that people do not currently want an Xbox, so we can't really do any worse than that in the hardware department. We can only go up from here, so take as many risks as possible, I guess. The death of the normal game. We're playing the new game right now. The game of the revenue stream. The game of addiction. The game of absorbing the maximum amount of your time and only providing fun in carefully managed doses. Xbox can capitalize this in a way that Sony and Nintendo probably won't. Nintendo exited the traditional console market by abandoning the television. I would argue that the Switch platform is a handheld that can hook up to a TV, and not a console that can become a handheld. Nintendo has always succeeded in the handheld space, and now that space belongs exclusively to them. There's no sense trying to beat their exclusive software library unless Sony gets very bullish about bringing all their old properties back in-house, and Xbox fails at this right out of the gate. Let's look at these development costs from Sony for a minute. They're winning the old game, the game of the expensive-to-develop, single-player legacy experience. It's no secret that Sony was freaking out about potentially losing Call of Duty to Microsoft with the Activision Blizzard deal. This is because Sony simply does not make money any other way. Not enough people realize this, but for Sony and the average big-name publisher, the regular style games you know and love simply do not make any money. Outside of rare exceptions, not including Nintendo games. I doubt that this model of game development can persist for very much longer. Sean Layden actually agrees with me. The future of this type of console may lie in the development of AA exclusives that can come out twice a year and not the AAA exclusives that cost $200 million, don't make their money back, and take 5 years to make. Call it turning PlayStation into Nintendo, or call it PlayStation learning to survive into the future. They're the same thing. The future for the Xbox type of console going forward has no internal development costs outside of porting things if necessary, but since we're running Windows, that shouldn't be a problem. We can have low performance hardware with lots of exclusives, high performance hardware with some exclusives, and the highest performance hardware that plays everything, but its competitors' exclusives. Now is the time to develop a relationship with your customer that can withstand the coming death of the normal game. Would anyone be able to argue that Sony is in a better position to do this than Nintendo? People need to buy that new Pokemon game, that new Animal Crossing game, that new Zelda game. Sony needs to start being able to say people need to buy that new game, and whatever that game is, it must be exclusive to PlayStation hardware should Sony intend to keep making consoles in its traditional style. Xbox has already given up on this, but the age of the new game is upon us at this very moment. Think hard about who was poised to survive this. Microsoft would do well to understand this dynamic if they intend to have hardware at all. Not the need for exclusives, but the need to utilize the new game to compete with the old game. Like I said before, Roblox, Genshin Impact, World of Warcraft, Counter-Strike adorn the new hardware's box. Going where the money is. Maybe all this was useless after all, and every recommendation I've made is only going to prolong a game that was already lost. If we pretend that there will be no new Xbox hardware, and Microsoft intends for Xbox itself to be some kind of storefront, it will likely fail immensely. After all, people act like they're being swatted if you tell them to buy a game on anything other than Steam. So we should discount the idea of the Xbox store outright, although I bet it's still coming somehow, as an evolution of Game Pass on all hardware. It's hard making your own hardware, and it's probably really hard making your own games. Maybe there's only ever room for two in the hardware business, but there's room for lots in the game publishing business, and I'm sure Microsoft knows this. Unfortunately, the multi-platform publisher model is the one that most looks like utter defeat, since they're relinquishing 100% of their ability to control the platform and manner in which their content is played. Expect lots of comparisons to Sega 25 years ago. Sega is doing better now than ever before, without any hardware to speak of. If this is where the money is, maybe that's where Xbox should be. If they own Blizzard, Activision, and Bethesda, it looks like the multi-platform approach may have been their plan all along, or they were just hedging their bets. There really was a past where they couldn't lose in the traditional console market, and now there's almost no future in which they can succeed. Xbox just has to pick its new way to die, be it radically different hardware, some kind of nasty Xbox store, or to become Sega too.